Is children really being left behind? What does that really mean? Welcome to the 601 Network. This is Real Jackson News. No fluff, no distractions, just real news for real people. Yeah, I'm Raphael Bird. You can call me Handle, you can call me Foresight, whatever. It doesn't make a difference. I want to talk about this particular subject matter here today because it's very, very important that I touch on it because that's just the question for me because what does that really mean? What does it really mean to when they say no child is left behind? Because in my mind, when I hear that, I think that when they say no child's left behind, when they talk about school, I'm thinking about before they go to the next grade, they're going to have everything they need. They're going to have all the tools that they need. They're going to be up to par in their reading comprehension and their reading abilities, math skills, language skills. All of these types of all of the skills that the schools are providing for our children. I'm talking about just bare minimum. Just bare minimum. Not none of the extras. Just bare minimum of what the school offers. Reading, writing, social studies, which is some of them say history, science, mathematics, art. Those are the essential educational skills that is provided in most all of the American schools all around this nation. So when I think of No Child Left Behind, I'm thinking those essential skills right there. They're not being left behind on that. If they score high on their test, their state test or citywide test, whatever you want to call it, they some of them have both of them. But if they score high or they just score average, they pass. And if they need some type of improvement, the next year they go to a special class in what they need improvement on. So that's what I'm thinking when I hear no child is left behind. But that's ideal. And many of you know that that's an ideal thought because that's not what's going on. That's not going on in Jackson, Mississippi. That's not going on in New York City. It's not going on in Flint, Michigan. It's not going on Dallas, Texas. That's not going on in Miami, Florida. It's not going on nowhere. It's not going on nowhere. Nowhere. Children are being left behind. But they're passing their grades, but they're not passing their life skills. Those essential skills that they are required to have. Because you got a lot of 12th grade students reading on a third grade level. Tenth grade students reading on a third grade level. 11th grade students reading on a third grade level. Adults, they didn't even go to college, they're still reading on the third grade level. Is this your child? Is this you? This right here, I didn't create these talking points to slight anyone. This right here is to make people aware that, I'm gonna give you an example. Why I'm trying to make people aware, Say your child is in 10th grade, high school, just started, basically, I know 9th grade, but let's say 10th grade. And that child is reading on a 4th grade level. But then, they're reading on a third and fourth grade level. Then you as a parent, you don't know that. You don't know that when you take your child to church and they're asked to read a scripture, they can't do it. They can't recognize some of the words that, or spell out some of the words that's in the scriptures, in the Bibles. And I'm not talking about the Old Testament. I'm talking about like regular English language virgin text. And they can't do it. Or they can't read a simple article. They can't do it. But they can text them. The texting is like is off. Not it's off. And but then that they read on a 10th grade level, right? They're in the 10th grade, but they read on a 3rd grade level. You go get them tested. So now you got a problem. But what I'm talking about is you got a 5th grader reading on a 2nd grade level. What I mean by that is that, but they, remember back in the days when you had your spelling words. They give you 10 words in school, and because I know they did that to me, and they give you 10 words. Then during that entire week, besides your math homework or your science homework or your social study homework, they would give you, let's say they would give you write them out 10 times, look them up in the dictionary, and because you want to get the definition of the words and write it out. Then you have to write it out in sentences in your own words, so that the teacher can see. That would be the last thing that they would get you to do, is write it out in a sentence, so you can get you to understand. So they know that you understand what's going on. It would be for them 3 days. They would give you those 3 assignments with your spelling words. Because Monday, it would be something. They would just introduce you to the words. So that Thursday, I mean that so that Friday you come, we would have the test. Remember, you would have the test on Friday. Sometimes they would give you the test straight early in the morning. So all right, everybody, y'all spelling y'all word, y'all did everybody know their words, and everybody they so we just so she give us all a blank piece of paper with a pencil. We have our own pencil. And at that time, we was writing with pencils, number 2 pencils, and she would give us all the words. But you had them students like myself, because I had a reading problem. This is why I'm bringing this up. Then you had those students like myself. She would call out the words, give the definition, and boom, we commenced to writing it down. Then after she gives the 10th word and everything, she said, all right, now everybody. So somebody's going to come around and collect your paperwork. And they'll come around, collect it. Boom. Then here I get my score back. 100. 100. I got a 100 on that test every time. But I had a reading problem. I could spell the words. I write the definition down. But what was really my problem was comprehension. That was really my problem. Was my reading comprehension. And that is the problem. Now, let me say this. A lot of times, it can be both. Because I remember there was a girl in my class. Had to be in the 4th or 5th grade. She could open up the book and just, her speed break was so fast. And I was like, dang. And I've always equated that with comprehension. No. Maybe she could have read fast, but did she really comprehend? Reading fast doesn't mean that you comprehend what you're reading. It's just you can identify the words. But do you understand what it is saying in the sentences? Do you truly understand and comprehend what that means? So that's something that I don't know, because I haven't been in school in years in terms of elementary school, so I don't really know had that been examined when I think it ought to be if it haven't. The difference between, I know they understand the difference between reading the words and comprehending. I know they already examined that. But I'm talking about, like, how do they get the student to truly understand what comprehension is? What comprehension is. What between the verb and the noun, what's giving you the meaning to what this sentence is? Between the verb and the noun, what is giving you the true meaning of what this sentence is saying? And they have not even touched. I don't even see them touching anything on that, because that right there is a importance that needs to be touched on. Because when you talk about reading comprehension, you just went down a whole nother rabbit hole when you talking about students, and that's something that you talk. When a student say, "I don't get it," that's what that means. I don't get it. But if they get it, just think about this for a minute. Most students that drop out of school, that's what it be. But they're not gonna tell you. I'm talking about you parents. They're not gonna tell you. The teachers know, the instructors know, but parents don't. They're not gonna tell you. That's if those instructors and teachers is working with those students. That's something that all through my you know childhood was understood by some of the instructors. We was going through it like you know, cause like if you had a good teacher in elementary school, man, they knew what students could read very well, what school students didn't read very well. They understood what students didn't. And when we said at that time, when we said a student reading very well, we meant comprehension because but like I said, my issue was comprehension. I didn't comprehend. I didn't know how to take 14 or 16 word sentence uh, words that was in a sentence and break them down and break them down and then come back and restate the whole thing again, or understand the difference between what is this verb, what is the verb, in listening to the verb of the word and listening to the noun of the word and getting and understanding what that truly meant. I know I didn't get that type of teaching. No, no. The methods that they had it wasn't strenuous at all. And then what they did was at that time they'll leave your tail back because you couldn't understand, you couldn't comprehend, and your scores was low. It wasn't because of your attendance. It was because of your scores. Your reading comprehension scores or your math comprehension scores. You know, but I remember I'm just like merely I know I'm talking about reading, but I'm talking about all the subjects too because even with math, it was like for me, like, I remember when I was in the fourth grade, the teacher, one of my teacher, I'll never forget her name, Vanessa Chisholm. She had, she had, she had used to take time out after school. She'd have these after school programs for the students that either they couldn't read very well or they didn't understand math very well. So alongside my my reading comprehension, I had an issue with math. Not all math, adding, subtraction. It was just the multiplication and the division part is what I had a problem with. You know, uh, so she took time out. Students had problems with their 3 timetables, 4 timetables, 7 timetables, 9 timetables, right? 12 timetables, 8 timetables, 6 timetables, all of those like sort of odd, like one of those odd timetables. A lot of folks, some folks have, but anyway, specifically, I had a problem with the 9 timetables. I just couldn't get. I just didn't get it. Didn't get it. And my teacher started working with all of us. It was about 6 or 7 of us. We stayed after school. But for a teacher to do that, that was commendable because how many teachers today is willing to stay after school for free? How many teachers is willing to do that to make sure that their students get it? How many of you are teachers out there are doing that to make sure your students get it? Because I'm gonna be real with you. it really makes you look bad. It does. And I hope some of you teachers out here are viewing this video, because it really does. It makes you look bad. You want to make sure that when you say no child is left behind, stand up. That's telling me that you teachers is willing to stand up and to make sure that no students is left behind. So she would, like I said, I had a problem. But anyway, I had a problem with my 9 timetables, but I got it. Because what she did was she made me think outside the box on, compares to what her lesson plan on what she was, told to teach. The methods that she was told to teach, she used some totally different methods on reading, writing, and math. She really took time out. She really took the time out to do that. And that's important to a student. Believe me when I tell you, if I'm talking to you teachers out there, or you teachers out there that really, or even you parents, if you don't take time out with your children, or if you do, they don't forget. They don't forget. So, I just, wanted to point out some of those types of things that, because me and my daughter was talking about that a couple of days ago about the reading part, how some of these students out here are just being passed through. Can, but, and, is, how, when, where, why. They know all of that, but when it comes to comprehending and putting them sentences together, the subject and the predicate, can't do it. They can't comprehend. And that's something that really needs to be talked about and touched on in these schools. Maybe the dropout rate would slow down some, because you actually got students out here that really have they really can address their problems. If you're really willing to address their problems with them, they're gonna ride with you. Have them do it anonymously. Have them do it anonymously. Give them a one-on-one session. And it's confidential between you and that student. Because a lot of times, a lot of students is very, they're very, as we call it, shame and fearful. And they don't want to be like, they don't want to be, called out amongst their peers. So, but that's something that really needs to be looked at, because all our children need to be up to par. Like with Jackson, Mississippi, we got schools, and a lot of the schools have closed down. A lot of students has been placed over here, placed over there, crowdings of different schools and this, that, whatever. Man, how can a teacher get to if a teacher got 60 or 70 children in the class, I know I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I'm just talking about, I'm looking at that as I'm talking about as that being overwhelming. If a teacher got over an overwhelming population, let's say that, in their class, if that class is overwhelming, and that how can they get to all the students? How can they get to all of the students if they got an overwhelming population? Somebody is not going to get touched on. But the method, let me say this, the method of how, for example, if I had an overwhelming population, let's say if I had 70 kids in the class, and let's just say 15% of them have reading problems. There will be there will be something that will be addressed to all of the students, and they will all come at me anonymously. Now, let's just say, for example, if I get that 50% in class, the very first thing that I would do is tell everybody sees for the same thing. So nobody's to embarrass no one. You have to constantly reiterate that. You got to constantly reiterate that. Sometimes you got to laugh at yourself. I'm talking about as far as the students. Sometimes students is sitting there laughing at each other. You here to class? Well, what are you here for? You're here for the same reason I'm here for. And the teachers must reiterate those types of things so those children can buckle down and get what they need to do and get on down. So, but that's just the idea that I had, and this is something that I kind of wanted to talk about today on my show, and I really hope that this really resonates with some of you parents and teachers, and maybe even some of you students. Maybe you have an older brother, a younger brother, or a younger sister, or maybe a cousin or somebody that you know that have an issue in school. Don't be afraid to reach out to the school. If you can help them, help them. Help them, because it's there. Because I'm gonna tell you something. Behavior don't just start automatically. There's a reason why behavior happens. First is good kid, bad kid. Bad kid, good kid. Been bad for a minute, turn good. Turn good kid, who's good for a minute, turn bad. Something happened. Something created that. So, but anyway, I want to thank you all for watching the 601 Network, Real Jackson News, and I am your host. And like I said, if you found this video to be enlightening and and educational, I just wanted to touch on something a little different today, because that's something that really needs to be touched on. What happened to the after school program before I go? What happened to the after school programs? That's just something that just kind of sporadically came into my mind here in the city of Jackson. What happened to the after school programs? What happened to the schools? What happened to the churches having little schools in their programs to help those students that has reading problems? So, but anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and share out this video and run them likes up, run them up, and definitely share it up and subscribe to the channel. Because like I said, I'll be putting out all different types of content that deals with this types of stuff, because that type of stuff plays the city. That's like a cancer. A child not being able to comprehend or not be able to do math, that's a cancer, because it grows. They grow in what do they grow into? You don't know. So thanks for watching, and we will talk to you on the next video. Goodbye for now.